Our guest this evening has spent over 25 years helping global enterprises navigate that exact journey. Mr. Johnson Varghese has seen it all.
Technology, is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. And leaders need to understand that.
Maybe a spark moment that set you on this path, a challenge that humbled you.
So the current customers want to upgrade to the latest features every time it is available within days of it coming in the market.
Given your experience, how can leaders ensure controls aren't just policies on paper, but living systems that actually prevent these incidents under real world pressure?
Calculated risk. Otherwise, you end up, getting the wrong end of the stick most of the time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute World Council of Directors. I am your host, Tanay All, and today we are diving into the world where technology, governance, and transformation intersect. This is a space where leaders don't just manage processes, they engineer trust, turn compliance into culture, and shape the digital future of organizations. Our guest this evening has spent over 25 years helping global enterprises navigate that exact journey. From setting up world class quality assurance systems to leading CMMI Level 5 transformations to coaching organizations on governance, DevOps, and digital change, Mr. Johnson Varghese has seen it all. Across his care, Sir has helped companies like Accenture, Infrasoft Technologies, and Conduent design and implement governance frameworks that don't just sit on paper, they live in daily practice. Today, he heads the SDLC Competency Centre globally at Conduent, driving process excellence and leading complex delivery transformations. Whether it's building statistical models to predict outcomes, mentoring teams on Six Sigma and project management, or ensuring that technology serves both business and regulatory goals, Mr. Johnson has been at the forefront of organizational transformation. Sir, welcome to the show and would love to know how you're doing today.
Thank you, Tanay. That was quite a generous introduction, I must say. I'm very excited to be here today because this is my first interview as well. So let's, get started. Thanks.
Lovely, sir. Sir, you've spent more than 2 decades shaping organizations and their quality journeys. But as we all know, behind every impressive resume, there's a powerful story. Would you please take us back to the beginning and share your journey in your own words, like maybe a spark moment that set you on this path, a challenge that humbled you, and a decision that you still stand by today?
Sure, yeah. The first one is always difficulty, right? So, so this one, I
100%.
would love to start by saying, this was a well thought out journey, and I had always planned it this way. But unfortunately, it was not like that. So this was, the first. I was just out of college in 1998, and this first job offer that I got happened to be for a quality engineer's role, and I just took it up. So it will be my first job. I was all excited about it, and so on. So I just got into that, by destiny, I would say. But once I was in, things started, behaving in a slightly different way. So people started asking me, especially from the same company, my colleagues and my other friends who were in, had joined other companies. They started asking me, why are you taking up a quality engineer's role when by education you are a computer engineer? And I realized that other people who were in similar roles like mine were not exactly computer engineers. They were, other kinds of graduates. So I had second thoughts initially, to be very honest. So I started wondering whether I should continue in this job or whether I should, make a switch to a more traditional kind of engineering role. But then I thought, let me just give this job some time because this company has invested and kind of made an offer to me, and they would want me to stick with them for some time. So with that in mind, I just kind of let it continue for some time. And slowly, I kind of realized that quality engineers are not anybody's friend. They people generally look at them like a villain of the story, or like a policeman who is out to police them and find mistakes with them rather than actually help them to make the project better. So when I look at that, my thought is that policeman's job is very important. If everyone follows the law, then there is no problem. There is no need of a policeman. But that is not the case. People flout laws, either deliberately or unintentionally or whatever. So we need a policeman's job, as a matter of fact. And in this role, the quality engineer is the advocate for the customer, because the customer wants a good product, and everyone on the development side also wants to give them a good product, but nobody is advocating for the customer as much as the quality person. So being an advocate for the customer is something that is very precious. And along that lines, I realized, that a lot of times customers are not so interested in the cutting edge technology that the company wants to offer. They're more interested in solving their problems. So bringing that perspective is very important, Tanay.
Yeah, very well said. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about leadership at scale. In your current role, you're responsible for setting up and running a global competency center while also overseeing delivery for one of the business verticals at Conduent. When you took on this mandate, sir, you were essentially building something from scratch while also managing existing delivery. So could you please walk us through the first 90 days? Like what were the toughest decisions you had to make to stabilize things and
Yeah.
set a foundation for growth? And how did different stakeholders respond?
Yeah, sure, sure. So setting up anything from scratch is always a challenge. So as you would know that, if something is running, keeping it running, is easier. You just follow the Newton's laws of motion, right? So starting something from scratch is always difficult. The first thing anyone would want to do in such a situation is to set up the right team for that. You cannot do a transformation journey by yourself. You need the right kind of people with the right skills, right temperament to to allow you to be able to be effective in this role. But the problem that I inherited as soon as I joined this company was that we had a deadline that we had to complete the certification in about 10 months from the time I joined the company. So I did not have the luxury of searching for the right people, hiring them, and then kind of building the team and then going out and deploying the processes and so on and so forth. So I had to optimize my approach. So we kind of borrowed people from whoever were available and were with the right kind of temperament, not necessarily very skilled in this quality profession, but who had the right kind of temperament. That's very important. So those who were aligned to the quality field. So we kind of borrowed them from other departments, other teams, and so on, and we kind of built a team. And then slowly we went on hiring from outside, and then building the scale of the team. So that was the first challenge. The second one, as you rightly pointed out, was getting the stakeholders on board. And this was the first time that I was doing an onshore and offshore together kind of an implementation. So prior to this, we always used to do offshore separately and onshore separately. So offshore, the culture is very different. Asian cultures are very different from the Western cultures. And you would have heard of the power distance and those kind of concepts which authors have often talked about. So in India, if you want to implement a transformation project, you just have to kind of give a little bit of a background, and then people will generally kind of listen to you, especially if you say that this is being something which is very high visibility with the management and so on. It kind of falls in place. But in the West, people are generally more attuned to asking questions. So you have to convince people why this is important for them, how it will benefit the organization. And people, right from the developer level to the project manager, everyone has to be convinced. So there's a lot of uh, convincing, talking, coaching, and all of that that you need to do when you have to kind of roll out such a big transformation project. And to that extent, I had to undergo not undergo I would have to take up road shows across the United States in multiple cities to actually meet people face to face. So when I met people face to face, a lot of the initial resistance and all wore off, and people became more friendly. And later on, when we used to talk on the phone, or when we had to kind of do calls or even virtual meetings, they were much more receptive to the ideas that I were to espouse. And the third important thing is that you always pick some people who can speak for you from the other camp. So apart from your own team, you need people from the developer side, from the testing side, and from the other infrastructure side who can actually speak for you. So there are people who have been in the company for a long time, who are aligned with your thought processes, and you kind of build those bridges with them early on, so they become your advocate, and kind of they are the ones who push your agenda forward. So these were the major kind of strategies that we took up.
Yeah.
Tanay.
Human trust building, I think, is core to anything that whenever something new is starting, right?
Correct, yes.
So much of your work has been about aligning impact with measurable business results, whether through CMMI, Six Sigma, or digital transformation initiatives. How do you design a system where process improvement and governance theoretical goals but actually show up in the P&L?
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought this question up because this is one of the biggest criticisms that we as quality professionals face, that quality is just a compliance function. Of course, it is a compliance function. It is supposed to be that way. The definition of quality itself is that it is the fitness for use. That's one of the definitions of quality, traditional definitions. So, of course, it is a compliance function. But then you look at it the other way. You look at it from a perspective of absence of quality, and then you realize what I mean when when you say that it's actually going to impact the bottom lines. So I'll give you an example from one of my earlier companies. It was a financial services provider, and we had an application that was being actually used by banks and their customers to do transactions. And there was one bug in the system, which obviously we did not know that it existed. And some of those end customers happened to discover that by some stroke of luck, their luck, of course. And they exploited that to transfer money from one person to the other, even when one person did not have sufficient balance in their account. So it was some kind of a bug which was overlooked while developing it. And they went on spreading that knowledge among their respective friends and families, and they defrauded that bank to a tune of several crores of rupees. Fortunately, it was discovered after a few weeks, and then we went in and plugged the leak and all of that. But in the meantime, the bank actually sued us to make good their damages. So that is the extent of absence of quality. You understand how it makes a direct impact on your bottom line, and that's why this there's this methodology called Six Sigma. I'm sure everyone has heard of it, and that's why it is such a beautiful methodology. Six Sigma is always about the numbers, the metrics. So either you have to save some money while by doing the project, or you have to make some money. There's no point in doing a Six Sigma project where there is no money involved. So it's always one of the key metrics in the project itself. So there is a metric called defect rate, which is the number of defects that are introduced into the system per day of development effort. So let's say, and I have done several defect rate reduction projects in my career. So let's say you have a running defect rate of one defect per day of coding. Okay, and by doing a Six Sigma project, if you're able to bring it down to 0.75, that's a 25% reduction in defect rates. Just extrapolate that number to a 100-man-month project. You'll realize what I'm talking about. In a 100-man-month project, normally you would have had 2,000 defects going by the running rate. And if you're able to bring it down to 1,500, that's a saving of or a reduction of 500 defects straight away. Now, each of those defects takes a couple of hours to fix also. You're talking about 1,000 hours of rework saved. Straight away, that's an impact on your bottom line, right? So there are several instances I can give you, where actually quality makes a huge difference to the bottom lines of a project. Now, once this project of Six Sigma has been completed, even more important is to make those improvements stick. And that's where the DMAIC methodology, right? The define, measure, analyze, implement, and control. The C is the control part of it. That's where these processes are institutionalized and made to stick. So that's where we have to run different governance programs, cadences. We have this metrics program on an ongoing basis where metrics are collected, reported, and highlighted to the management whenever there is a deviation from threshold.
No, makes sense. So you worked extensively with technology, both implementing platforms and using tech to transform organizations. In today's world, there's so much focus on flashy features and speed. Where do you think leaders go wrong when scaling technology, and how do you ensure tech strengthens governance rather than just automating bad processes?
Yeah, that's a very good question, especially in today's context. When this Gen Z generation is actually, kind of taking most of the decisions today. You have this, just take an example of the iPhones. They are out in the market and they get sold out within moments. And every year this keeps happening. So the current customers want to upgrade to the latest features every time it is available within days of it coming in the market. Now that's fine from a consumer perspective, but when we're talking about enterprise solutions, we have to be extremely careful. I can, give you an example of one of my earlier jobs where we had set up a project management tool for internal project management purposes within the company, and we had a local vendor who was supporting that product, and they came up with an upgrade, latest technology, database, UI, and everything, and we went ahead with the upgrade, and the product was working perfectly fine. It was serving all our purposes before that, just remember that. So once we did this upgrade, all hell broke loose. It stopped working, it was not scalable, the new technology was fully buggy, and whatever we were able to achieve with that, we were not able to achieve. And henceforth, we had to immediately switch to manual mode for a few weeks while we brought all of this back. It was real horror. So from that time onwards, I kind of always think twice before you jump into the upgrade. So we always wait. Let's say it's a database upgrade from Oracle. We wait for that upgrade to become at least one generation old or one cycle old before we jump into it, because we know that there are so many bugs that can come into it. So technology, is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. And leaders need to understand that that's the way customers would expect them to behave as well, right? So another example I can give you is the implementation of these enterprise resource planning tools like SAP, for example. A lot of companies ended up taking SAP and then trying to customize it to fit their processes. That is one of the biggest mistakes that leaders have done in this industry. When you buy an ERP product, you're not just buying the software, you're buying the entire best practices. So those tools have been built based on decades of experience in that industry. The workflows are customized to those best practices. So you have to upgrade your processes to that level to get the best advantage of that ERP implementation. On the other hand, if you make the ERP go according to your own processes, it is far from optimal. You'll not get the best options or best outcomes from that. Just to kind of conclude this answer, I would say that it is a tripod basically. One is people, the other is processes, and the third is technology. You cannot move one end only or make it longer, because then the whole tripod becomes unstable. You have to move all three. You have to train the people, you have to build the processes, and then upgrade the technology so that all the three legs are growing at the same speed.
Yeah, I think for an organization growing, that's something very sorry, sir. Okay, now it's time for a little fun, sir, our very own rapid fire round. The only thing I request you is some quick answers, either in one word or one sentence. So, are we ready?
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
One buzzword you'd ban forever.
Artificial intelligence, the most abused word.
I swear. Comfort food after a long day.
Uh, Pizza.
Oh, interesting. Alternate career you'd have chosen.
Legal profession.
Okay. A movie or show, sir, you never get tired of.
Friends or Prison Break,
Oh,
favorites.
beautiful. A funny habit your team teases you about.
Uh, that's a little embarrassing, actually. This it's like a quirky thing. A lot of people have this habit of starting sentences with just some inane words which have no particular relevance to that. So I used to have this habit of starting sentences with basically. So whether it is
Okay.
basic or not, so you just started with, basically I did this and then basically I did that and all that. And so I realized after some time that people were doing that same thing back to me, saying, "How are you feeling today?" Basically. So it was actually very interesting, and it took some time to get out of that actually.
Yeah. Past or future, where would you time travel?
Future for sure, because past is something we already know, we've learned about it. So I think it will be better to explore the future.
Yeah. Three words to describe yourself.
Only three, right? Careful risk taker, I would say. So while I want to take risks,
Yeah.
and I want, because without risk there is no reward, right?
Very
So
true.
you have to take risks to achieve the rewards, but then those have to be very thoughtful, calculated risks. Otherwise, you end up getting the wrong end of the stick most of the time.
Very true, sir. Great, sir. That was a rapid fire round. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
being so rapid. So, we are seeing a rise in sophisticated scams from tech support call center cons tricking people into giving remote access to business email compromise where attackers hijack vendor emails and swap bank details, causing massive losses. Given your experience, how can leaders ensure controls aren't just policies on paper but living systems that actually prevent these incidents under
Yeah.
real world pressure?
Yeah, this is a very weighty question, and this is something which is affecting all of us because cyber criminals are here to stay. And it's not, they're not going away anywhere. That's completely invaded our lives. Every day you open the newspaper, you find some news story or the other. The latest I would say is the digital arrest scam. It would seem so unreal that people actually fall for these kind of things. And you've got this SIM card swapping and credit card cloning, you name it. They're just becoming more and more smarter every year or every month. They're actually every time you plug one loophole, they find new ways to do it. So it's very important that we are prepared and we are ahead of the curve. I'll give you an example recently that happened in my company. That there was some cyber criminals who managed to get into our data center using some vulnerabilities that they managed to hack. And it was so scary. It was so scary. We almost lost our entire data center. It was just our good luck and good fortune that the entire thing was not brought down. And we would have to pay ransom to get it unlocked again and all of that. But we in the process we had a huge downtime for weeks. Our customers were out of service, so it led to an immense loss of goodwill. That how can a company which is managing so many millions of users and so many transactions and all that get attacked in this way? But that is the fact. That is the world we are living in. So this time we were lucky, but we will not be lucky every time. So what we did was that we kind of put a safety first as a policy, as a going in position. So everything else becomes secondary. Whether your functionality or your convenience or whether your speed, everything becomes secondary to safety. So safety becomes the first priority. And that was a sea change. And that needed a lot of drilling in. So every application has to be reviewed again with that in mind. Is it safe? First and foremost, is it safe? Then you can build in other things, because if it's not safe, you'll not be in business much longer. So that was the first thing. And what we do on a regular basis is that we kind of test our internal users or our developers and our testers and our other staff, or maybe our operations agents. We kind of send out in the infra team, they kind of send out emails with some links on it, and it disguise it in such a way that it looks very authentic. So for example, they will send a mail which looks like it is coming from their own supervisor asking, hey, I have asked you for this document, can you just upload it to this link? But if that person is careful enough to read it, the domain from which that mail would have come is not the company's domain, it's something else. And the link also would be pointing to something else. So you're actually expecting people to look at that before acting on it. It may look urgent, but then you should always take a look at least at whether the domain is correct, whether what they're asking you, does it look normal for that person to be doing that kind of a communication with you. And yeah, and there is a phishing button over there, and you're supposed to be clicking that and letting them know that yes, I have passed this test, because it is only a test, there's no damage done, but then you're supposed to report it. And there are some people who fall for it, of course, because human tendency to trust. Unfortunately, that is the most exploited feature. So if they click on that, then they have to. A lot of emails are sent to them saying that this is how it is supposed to be, and you should not be doing this and all. Because a lot of mailers do come, but typically what happens is those mailers go into the unread mail, or into the junk mail folder. So this is when they actually have to go through that tutorial again to learn the things basics again.
Very well said, sir. So, you have recently been associated with Directors Institute, which is dedicated to strengthening boardroom excellence and governance practices. Could you please share what motivated you to join and how has the experience influenced your perspective on modern governance and leadership?
Yeah, as I kind of grew up into the leadership roles, I realized governance is very important. And this is one topic in the industry also that I have seen that I'm very passionate about it. So there are several examples you can look at, where there was a lack of governance and boards have not played the roles that they were expected to do. Like, for example, there was a Satyam scam maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Then there was a Kingfisher Airlines, which, the boards did not do the necessary due diligence. And now boards are not just representing the promoters or the major shareholders. There are a lot of other stakeholders who are involved in as well. So the minority shareholders being the biggest one. And then you have governments, then you have civil society, then you have environment being so important. And there was this case in Kerala a few years back where there was this Coca-Cola plant which was actually taking out so much of the groundwater and polluting the groundwater to such an extent that the entire neighborhood or the entire village turned dry and people were not able to get drinking water for themselves. So all of these kind of activities need somebody at the board level to be able to play that advocate role. So, like I said earlier, quality engineer is the advocate of the customer. Similarly, these board directors, especially the independent directors, need to be advocate of these different groups. And they are not just pressure groups, they are actually stakeholders who have a lot to gain or lose by some of the decisions, especially if the companies are big. So, that is the role that directors have to play. And recently, I got this email about this webinar that Zishan was supposed to be taking. And because I was generally interested in this topic of governance, I went ahead and joined that. And he so beautifully, kind of took us through the entire process of how directors are supposed to behave and how they're supposed to act and what is it if they don't act in that way. So it was a very powerful kind of webinar. And I immediately signed up for this program after that. I think this is one of the best career decisions I have taken in the last several years.
Lovely, sir. Thank you so much for those kind words and for sharing your journey with us. From shaping global quality frameworks to leading digital transformations and mentoring teams, your insights have been invaluable, sir. And what truly stood out was how you connected governance, technology, and people, showing us that sustainable growth comes from systems that are both resilient and human centered. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. One last word I would just like to say is emphasize. Just want to leave the viewers with a quote saying that quality is not expensive, it is priceless. So just wanted to leave that with the viewers. Thank you.
Lovely,
Thank you
sir.
for having me today.
To our listeners, I hope today's conversation inspires you to look at governance not just as a checkbox exercise, but as a living culture that protects organizations and empowers people. This has been FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. I am Tanay All, and until next time, lead with purpose, act with integrity, keep building the future responsibly, and of course, have fun in your journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.